Dr. Ghasem Bayat. He just shared with us that just before this meeting, he was speaking to the entire Persian-speaking world through the TV broadcasting from LA. And we are very lucky to have him here with us tonight to share further about the spiritual significance of Naw Ruz, as well as his research and his inspirations about the future of our times. We live in this very special time where we are facing special opportunities as well as special challenges. And so let us hear from Dr. Bayat about how does he think we can most fruitfully participate in this process of the birth of the New World Order. Over to you, Dr. Bayat.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dulia. And first of all, I would like to express my appreciation of you and all other organizers of this conference. It's a great honor for me to have the opportunity to talk about this subject, Naw Ruz, and its implications, and how we should change our attitudes to have a different world altogether. I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I hope you'll stay with me on this. I'm going to share my screen. I particularly focus on solutions to the challenges of these uncertain times. But first of all, I would like to say a few words about Naw Ruz and its origin, and then talk about our uncertain times and its major issues. And as Baha'is, how do we look at solutions for these problems in the world? Naw Ruz, it's already been mentioned that it's a very ancient celebration, and it means new day. Naw Ruz means new day. And first of all, if you look at the world, you'll see all these different colors of flowers that I'm displaying here. And these are all springtime flowers. Therefore, Naw Ruz is a time that the world starts blossoming everywhere. And of course, for the Baha'is, this new day is also a day for Baha, the founder of this faith. It's been celebrated in many places on earth, as it's already been mentioned. Occasionally, 3,000 years is referred to as the origin of this celebration, but in reality, this celebration and this particular event has its roots in the first agricultural revolution that took place in the Mesopotamia, which is known as the place where agriculture started. And if you go by that, you can easily go back 6,000 to even 15,000 years. But we know a lot more about it over the past 3,000 years. It's also important to know that UNESCO has listed this particular event as a heritage of humanity. I don't intend to get a lot to the history of this, but I just want to show you some of these pretty pictures and the names of several of these countries that celebrate it. Here you have Tajikistan, Russia, Iran, Turkmenistan, Turkey, India, Pakistan, and many more countries has already been referred to. And therefore it's celebrated as a day of color, as a day of beauty, as a day of music, which is one of the beauties of Naw Ruz. To change topic, I would like now to talk about some of the challenges of our time. We often hear about these challenges, but I would like at start to let you all know that all these challenges are rooted in human behavior. If you have the right behavior, none of these are challenges. But because of the problems of our behavior, every one of these issues have become a problem. And I'm going to give you some examples to see some of the worst cases of global issues and showed how it is deeply rooted in our personal behavior as an individual, as a community, and as people of the world. We often talk about global warming, and of course the consequences of that we know a lot about. We're talking about food shortages, droughts, famine, desertification of the planet, mass migration, and so on. But it's very interesting that global warming is the consequence of human activity in using hydrocarbon fossils that generates carbon dioxide, a gas which causes global warming. However, it's interesting to know that CO2 is not the cause. The cause is excessive use of fossil fuels. If we say the problem is CO2, it is as though we say the problem of diabetes has to do with people having a lot of sugar, or, well, it's their choice. Or we can blame all restaurants for producing a lot of good food and people eating a lot, and as a result, ending up being obese. Global warming is merely an issue that had to do with our choices and excessive use of energy. If every one of us, every day of our lives, ask ourselves, do I need all that energy that I use? Do we need all these cars? Do we need the type of cars that we have? Do we need the type of homes that we have? Do we need to travel as much as we do? And as a result, the problem would come down to the individual levels. It's excesses of this current civilization that is producing too much gas, that it took hundreds of millions of years to be extracted out of Earth's atmosphere, almost 200 million years. And now, in the past 2 centuries, we're producing it in the form of hydrocarbons. This is buried underground and releasing it into the atmosphere. So if you want to know who is the culprit for global warming, it's our excessive use of that. Otherwise, carbon dioxide is something that our nature needs. All trees and plants need that. Therefore, if you use too much of hydrocarbons, fossil fuels in general, you produce excess carbon dioxide that the nature, because of its system, cannot accommodate, and as a result will end up with global warming and its all consequences. Similarly, we can look at militarism, the arms race, and the consequences of that, which is the waste of money, waste of resources, waste of all these young men and women that are called into the armies that basically are not doing very much. And this militarism has caused destruction, instability, and failed governments, dictatorships, the groups of refugees around the world, and so on. So if you ask ourselves, are the arms manufacturers the cause of militarism? They are not, although they like to sell weapons. But again, it is deeply rooted in human behavior. If we do not have this attitude of warlike perspective in the world, militarism will just turn around eventually to the use of arms only for security of local places rather than for arms race and war between nations. Other issues such as poverty, disease, illiteracy, insecurity, crime, violence, that also are big issues around the world. If you look at it, we will find that again, a lot of it has to do with us. You know, poverty is a consequence of the way we are managing the world resources. It's not an accident. So again, it has to do with what we do. Disease to some extent, and in some cases, in large extent, has to do with our practices, bad hygiene, and so on that causes that. Illiteracy in the world has to do with bad distribution of resources. Insecurity that comes is as a result of, again, having come this far in civilization, but not having learned to control our own behavior. And violence, quite clearly, is a human choice. Big cities and the associated problems with big cities, here is called another of major challenges in the world. But is it not us that choose to go and live in big cities? And when you have cities of 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, and even more, it's obvious that you cannot provide for those citizens all the things that they need for a good life. So we will end up with part of these cities being extremely rich and the rest being extremely poor. These are all attitudes, has to do with our attitude. That's where the root of these problems are. So in a nutshell, it's true that we all have a free will, but we have to accept that we reap what we sow. There are choices that we have to make in life. It's a choice whether we want a pleasant earth environment or whether we want to go through global warming and all the consequences of that, as you see in that picture. It's our choice whether we want to partner with nature and help nature to do well. As a result, we will have a better environment, or whether we want to be the people who destroy the nature. As you see, these are all human choices we are making. It's much easier to sit back and blame everybody else, or blame organizations and companies, blame military industrial machine, or blame the oil companies, or blame agricultural industry and so on for all the problems that we see around. But really, if we think carefully, we will see the problem is rooted in our personal behavior and as a society. These are all people issues now I'm going to talk about. Poverty, cost of healthcare, bad home, bad school, and unsafe environment. Whose choices are there? These are our choices in bad management of resources of any community. Rampant prejudices, racial, ethnic, national, religious, political. In particular, in the United States, over the past 400 years, we haven't managed to get rid of racial prejudices. So it's a choice. We have to make a choice to once and for all rid ourselves of these ethnic and racial disparities that we have around and attitudes that we have. Without that, nobody can help those problems. Aggression in all levels of society, it's obvious where the aggression comes. It's from us as individuals exercising it over others. Culture of consumerism, yes, it's a disease. And the disease is that all of us want a lot more than what we need. If every one of us think, anytime we want to buy something, whether we really need it or is it just something good to have? If we don't need it, we have to let it go. And culture of consumerism will disappear. In many of our cities, we have issues of addiction, excessive use of alcohol and narcotics. Aren't these choices we have made? Choices we have made for ourselves, for our family, for our community. And it's clear that unless we change those choices, nothing is going to change. There's a quote from Nelson Mandela that you're all familiar with. He says, "Poverty is not an accident. Like slavery and apartheid, it is man-made and can be removed by the actions of human beings." I'm taking advantage of this quote and say all the problems of the world that I talked about, whether it is on a global scale or whether it is on people's issues, all of them are matters of choice. We can choose to get rid of these problems. If you look at the society around us, that's what is going on. Everybody is fighting with everybody else. Is that what we want to have? That's why we know we reap what we sow. So the biggest problem ahead of us and the biggest wall we have to climb is the one we have built in our own minds. That's the hardest struggle we have, to change our habits. Mankind, basically, the Baha'i writings tell us that mankind needs a new ethics, and these new ethics should be based on recognition of the unity of the human race as a single individual people. Until we recognize that, many of those world issues will not go away. Acceptance and implementation of International Charter of Human Rights. Unless we all accept that, we are going to have divided societies. Acceptance of world citizenship and abandoning prejudices and aggression. Until we change our attitudes towards those issues, they never go away. And ending consumer culture and wasteful lifestyles that we have. Baha'u'llah's advice tells us, regard ye the world as a man's body, which is afflicted with diverse ailments, and the recovery of which dependeth upon harmonizing of all of its component elements. And also he says, take from this world only unto the measure of your needs, and forego that which exceeded them. Observe equity in all your judgments, and transgress not the bounds of justice. This world is a present to us, and we have to look at it that way. In the Baha'i writings, Baha'u'llah's writing, we read that man is organic with the world. His inner life molds the environment and is itself also deeply affected by that. So we are creating the type of world that we want to have. So to tackle all these issues, global warming, population explosions, arms race, we need a world disarmament backed up by an international peacekeeping force and internal security being maintained by local police force. We have to stop the wasteful military expenditure to be used for all needs of society. There is plenty money in that budget. The well-being of humankind, its peace and security, Baha'u'llah tells us, are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established. And the revelation of Baha'u'llah directly and indirectly touches on a range of such concerns that speaks to a harmony between society and the natural world. We cannot segregate the human heart from the environment outside us and say that once one of these is reformed, everything else will be improved. Man is organic with the world, his inner life, and his inner life molds the environment and itself is deeply affected by that. If we take love from the world, this world of us is nothing but a tomb for majority of the world inhabitants. You can see this is where a faith comes in to teaches us to love one another and introduce the element of love in the management of society, which so far has all been based on competition. We have to change that to cooperation because of this element of love. But we love, the world could be heavenly. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bayat. To all the participants, and now we invite you to ask any questions that you may have, any comments, any inspirations from listening to Dr. Bayat. Okay, we have Joe Ferris. So I'm asked you to unmute yourself.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kathy Knight with Joe Ferris. And it was very good. I really liked that. And I had one question, though. One of the issues in the world today, I think, is overpopulation and how we can, address that. I know when I was young, I thought the world was overpopulated. I didn't have any children. And the only issue with that is when you get older, who's going to take care of you. But other than that, you know, I've had plenty of children that I've helped in my life. So that's just something that I wonder how we can address overpopulation and you know, bring it down. Maybe people only have one or two children. You know,
Thank you for this very important question. You see, overpopulation has caused, I actually call it population explosion rather than just overpopulation. And the unfortunate aspect is this explosion of population happens in places that they don't have resources to accommodate them. They don't have resources to feed them, to educate them, to give them clothes, to give them a clean and healthy environment and look after them. So not only they're overpopulating and population is exploding in those places, but they have no resources for it. So on television, we constantly see these very unfortunate and sad events of children who are hungry, adults who are really skinny, women who really working so hard to take care of their children. As you see, it's another issue of attitude. There was a time that there was no limit to the size of the earth. Everybody thought that you just go next village. You move next and next and next. But that attitude was wrong. And there was a time that people needed those children basically to look after their farms and look after them at their old age. And also because of bad hygiene and bad health care, often many of those children would die. So they will have as many as they can so that luckily some of them survive. We really don't have any of those issues. So it comes back to attitude. Two individuals, when they get married, they should look into each other's eyes with all that love that they have for each other and say, there are two of us, so we shouldn't have more than two. Simple as that. Okay. Now, I know it's easy to say, but I know it's been practiced. I can tell you that my grandparents had 13 children. My parents had 6, and myself and all of my siblings, we have 2. So you can see how it can change. Education, of course, can help a lot, but it's more than education. It has to be with that attitude of mind that we say, do we have the right to demand more of the resources of the earth? However, I would like to add this. The problem of the world is not scarcity. The problem of the world is bad management of resources. We can nevertheless feed all of those and so on. Not that it's desirable for the world's population to grow at the current pace, but nevertheless, we have the resources, if we manage them well, to look after them, hoping that if they get educated, their model will be similar to my model. In a generation or two, they will go to 2 or 1 child. So Baha'u'llah calls this day the day of abundance. We don't live in a day of scarcity, but in those parts of the world, if you look at it, it's a scarcity. It's because of the way we manage the resource of the world badly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments?
Hello. I would like to just make one comment. I appreciate your response very much, Dr. Bayat, and your question, Joe. I just want to make a comment about the idea of children taken care of. I think, you know, in the earlier days, that was one of the ideas of having so many children, you know, because they worked on the farm with you and they took care of you in your old age and all of that. But most people I know today do not want to burden their children with their care when they get older. Most people I know absolutely do not want to do that. So that's the only comment I wanted to share. And I know that I have two children, and there is absolutely no way that I want to have them be responsible for taking care of me.
And we would like
as I am aging, of course.
And we would like that to be voluntary, because if people are told You cannot have more than one child. It's been done, of course, very successfully in China.
Yes.
And I'm very grateful to Chinese who really control the population. But nevertheless, it has to show the sign of maturity of the human race. As I said,
It does. I agree.
two individuals, they get married, they look into each other and say, well, I'm not entitled to take more of resources of the earth than the two we are. And you will see in 1 or 2 generations, the issue of population explosion will go away. It's another example of the bad choices we make in life, and we have created a miserable earth for ourselves and everybody else.
Okay.
I agree absolutely that it needs to be voluntary. I think that freedom above all is prized.
Yes. In fact, we go as far as saying this uneven distribution of wealth around the world is also unfair, and it's not really humane. But we would like the redistribution of wealth on earth also to take place on a voluntary basis. Not individuals being forced to give up their wealth, but the individual's consciousness being raised so much that they would say, well, how much of this wealth can I use? And the rest of it, distributing it through rational means to the rest of the world. So as I said, the problem is management of resources. It's a management issue. It's not the scarcity. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, reflections? Participants? I couldn't help noticing, Rosine, that you had your baby with you as we were talking about future generations actively participating. It was beautiful to see.
Well, you know, children are our future. I think we need to also keep that in mind, that children are our future. And of course, we value them most highly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, we have Jinus raising her hand. Please.
Sit down, you can hear.
Hello. Just wanted to thank you so much for the talk. It was very inspiring. It was beautiful, inspiring, and it makes it so clear in that, you know, the sentences that you were saying, that it comes back to our behavior, whatever that we see, all these issues that we do. And so I think there are a few levels that how we can achieve this betterment of the world for everybody. I guess one is an individual basis of me not using my car as often or buying less things and only when I need things. But as a society also, is there a way, do you suggest a way that how we can spread these thoughts and these models of behavior so we get to you know, to a place where we don't have children who are hungry anymore or diseases that are rampant like this? How can we achieve that as a society? If I could get your thoughts on it.
Thank you for your question. In society, we find it very easy to go and join parties that campaign for this and that. Okay. But often in these parties, they don't think about the root cause of the problem. Because when you join this party, it is as though you say it's everybody else's fault. It's not my problem. You go on a party and start campaigning for example, disarmament. All right. And it is as though it's not my problem, it's government's problem. Or you go and start campaigning for global warming, without necessarily applying all those principles to my own life as individuals. So what we need to do is to become a lot more proactive, speak up in the neighborhood, in the school parents association, in the club association of your neighborhood, become active members of society, and everywhere we go, we bring up these subjects. You see, it's incredible. It dawned on me, you know, I have been talking about global warming for about 25 years, long before any of these politicians started talking about it. And the reason for it is that I work for the oil industry. I actually run an oil company, which its job is to produce oil and gas. But for all these 25 years, I've been lecturing everywhere on radio, on television, and publications in universities saying, please don't abuse this commodity. If you abuse it, we have consequences way beyond our control. It dawned on me once I went to a restaurant and the food was really good. And I must admit, it wasn't very good for me. I just realized it's not fault of the restaurant that cooks good, delicious meal. It has to do with my choices of how much to eat and what to eat. Global warming is just a simple consequence of our abuse of the energy. That's what it is. And it will not go away until we change our habits. Just imagine when we wash our teeth, do we let the water tap to run? It's because we live in a place on earth that water is plenty, but in most of the world, that's not the case. Most of the world are fighting not having enough good water to use. We have these vast roads and we jump in our cars and we drive forever. Is that what we should do? People live far distances from where they work and they have to commute every day. Is that the best way to do that? Most families in America have 2 cars and some extra. Is that the way what should be? Aren't there public transport? Why is it not public transport available? Because the car companies have not been interested in that, and they are more forceful in committees that design the cities and manage the cities than individual citizens of that city. If you become more vocal, you will find that you could go to your city organization and encourage them to start looking into public transportation. Create jobs where people have homes also nearby. Isn't that beautiful to live within walking distance of your workplace? Nowadays, we just learned, thanks to this disease, that it's fantastic to work from home. And we've learned that we all can work from home. In fact, myself and all of my staff, since March, we've been working from home. And I find it even more efficient than when I used to go to office. So when the COVID is over, I'm not quite sure if I'm going to ask the staff to return back to office. So here is, thanks to a disease, we all learned something that was on the card and we knew about it. The tools have been around, we haven't been using it. So I go back to this. The key to solving world problems, whether from a global scale or to human scale, all has to do with the choices that we make. Conscious choices that we make, and we go by it. And as I said, the role that the faith plays is to interject that element of love into everything that we do. If you have love for our environment, if you have love for our work, if you have love for our neighbor, if you have love for the school that our children attend, if you have love for our government, and the government has love also for the rest of us, many of these things will go away because they are all within our ability to solve. I'm not aware of any single global problem that cannot be solved through conscious decisions of individuals. And believe me, I have been lecturing on these subjects. Today was very brief. That was a subject of probably a 3 hours workshop that I just crammed it into 20 minutes for you. I'm not aware of any problem in the world that, given human determination, we cannot solve it. It's just not there. All has to do with the choices we make in love, in our life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Bayat. I'm reminded of a leadership conference that I've attended a few years ago, where there were various leaders of industry, government, and non-governmental sector, and so on, from all over the world who have gathered here in Switzerland, and everybody was talking about different global problem that they're experts in. And inevitably, every single speaker would come to the same conclusion, that the solution of that global problem was not possible without, and in fact, in many cases, the problem itself was created due to the lack of awareness, true heartfelt awareness of our unity, of our interdependence, oneness, and unity. And from that, seeing each other with an all-loving eye, right? Which you were talking about. So here I want to share a quote from Baha'u'llah, who said, "The tabernacle of unity has been raised. Regard ye not one another as strangers. Ye are the fruits of one tree and leaves of one branch. The earth is but one country and mankind its citizens."
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Just imagine how many of major issues will be resolved with the implications of just this single passage from the Baha'i writings. And there are hundreds of passages that cover every topic that I talked about. In the Baha'i writings, there are passages that when you read it and see it and say, why didn't we know that before? Why is it that people aren't considering this before? But we just have to be more active, talk, share our ideas, and make sure that in all levels of society, whether it's in the local group, in a city, in the state we live in, or in the country, these ideas are understood and shared with our representatives, and hope that with goodwill, we are going to see a difference. Right now, every year, any government that comes to power, the first thing that they do, they say how much they're going to increase the military budget. And the reason for it is that they do need the support of the military to be able to do anything. And as a result of that, it is as though the increase in the budget of the military is a given. While if you really think about it, the military budget of our own nation, for example, is probably putting another 10 of the top countries of the world put together. So are we spending that money wisely? It's true that we need global security, but Baha'u'llah offered a solution for that. He offered a concept of collective security. He wrote to Napoleon and to several other of the kings of his age, this is 160 years ago, and said, you constantly raise your military expenditure and you tax your people. It's unfair on them. It's a burden on them. Why don't you get together and resolve your conflicts? Agree on each other's borders. Then all you need is police force for internal and an international peacekeeping force, making sure that if a country causes problem for another, the whole world will be there to put that power down. As a result, suddenly, rather than having all these countries, armies, every country in the world has an army. If you ask yourself, what are they using these armies for? Eventually, they're all going to war and destroy everything. Yeah, the solution is there. As I said, it all has to do with our attitudes.
Okay, so in that spirit, let us move to let's close on a spiritual note and get some inspiration from the Baha'i prayers so that we each may be inspired to gain insight into how we can contribute, how each one of us can contribute to this global awareness of oneness and mutual love and fellowship.
Oh, divine providence, shed a ray that it may become illumined, shed a ray of light, a ray of light, shed a ray of light.
Now I'd like to invite you to pray and meditate on the words of Baha'u'llah. You may wish to close your eyes. Lift up your hearts above the present and look with eyes of faith into the future. Today the seed is sown, the grain falls upon the earth. But behold, the day will come when it shall rise a glorious tree, and the branches thereof shall be laden with fruit. This is a new cycle of human power. All horizons of the world are luminous, and the world will become indeed as a garden and a paradise. The gift of God to this enlightened age is the knowledge of the oneness of mankind and the fundamental oneness of religion. May these powerful words inspire us to have a vision for the future, for our world and at large, and a part of it that each one of us is able to impact. Thank you very much, Dr. Bayat, for the inspiring words. And thank you to Nushin Mamadat for putting together a beautiful program. And thank you very much to dear Firuz for providing invaluable technical support. And for our conclusion, I'd like to turn it over back to our gracious host. Speaker, please.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you very much. And many thanks to all of you for joining us today for this program. Especially thank you to Dr. Bayat for your very inspiring talk, yes, and to Nushin Mavadat for organizing this program. And thank you, Julia, of course, for being the master of ceremonies, and Firuz, thank you for all your technical expertise. Now, I do see before we conclude that a few of you have raised your hands. I'm not sure if that is still, that you would like to share something. Let's see. So,
Michael, you are raising your hand, right? Yes.
Well, let's see.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I hope this will be appropriate. I'd like to mention that the Council for the Parliament of the World's Religions has just announced that there will be a Parliament of the World's Religions this year.
Oh, excellent.
The event, that's where Swami Vivekananda came to the world's attention 100 years ago. There have been a number of these gatherings since then in various places around the world. I've been fortunate enough to attend a few of them. They're amazing gatherings of thousands of people and speakers from all the world's religions. Of course, there hasn't been able to be one in person, but there will be a virtual one this year in October. You can get information. Look
Virtual.
at the world's religions. It's very affordable, and I think you would find it a wonderful event.
Thank you, Michael. And I would like to mention that our ashram is part of your background there, which is wonderful. Yes, yes. So that is our physical location in San Francisco, where we last year, I think, because of the COVID restrictions, we actually canceled our Naw Ruz celebration. But this year, we're very happy to be able to do it, offer it virtually, and thank you everyone for attending. We do hope to be able to resume in-person gatherings soon. It's on the horizon, again, at our ashram, which is pictured there and Michael's background. Thank you very much, Michael, for sharing that. And I do see a few other hands that have been raised.
Yes, we have Mana, who asks.
To be unmuted. I don't know if people are able to unmute themselves or not.
Yeah, they can ask me to unmute, and I'll be happy to. Mana,
Okay.
are you still there? Would you like to speak?
Okay.
Mana, we can't.
We can't see you though.
Yeah,
There's some.
we can't see you. Okay.
Okay, I want to say that
Okay.
everything what we say is got to do with an individual, and the individual has to change. It's all boiling down to the individual. We can't blame the government, we can't blame the leaders, we can't blame anybody. All we have to do is to change. If we want any change in the world, it's us. But now what I want to ask Dr. Bayat is how to make the change. And change is so slow that people get a bit discouraged. How to make a better and a faster change?
So Dr. Bayat, would you like to speak on that? I see you have unmuted yourself.
Yes, thank you very much for this very insightful comment. I think there's a famous quote from Tolstoy who says that everybody is interested in getting everybody else to change. Nobody starts from himself or herself. And that's the truth. What I would like to add, as I said, I was very strictly staying within the 20 minutes. So there were many aspects that I didn't have time for. But now that you ask, I can at least bring one extra one here. And that's the Baha'i faith and the Baha'is believe that women have a very unique role in the future of the world. In the Baha'i writings, we read that women have special talents and faculties that men do not have. To mention few that comes in the Baha'i writings is this attitude of nurturing, this attitude of compassion and love that it's abundant in women, and also intuitiveness. We believe that until and unless women reach positions of authority and decision-making in all aspects of society, at all levels, all the way to the world level, the issues of the world, which one of the important one is world peace, will never be achieved. Now, also in the Baha'i writings, we read that women are mothers, and they are the ones that are raising the children. If they themselves are educated and know what's the right thing to do, they will raise children that within 1 or 2 generations, we will have an incredible change in attitudes in the world that otherwise wouldn't happen. Many women are teachers at schools, at all levels. They take with them those abilities. Many of them are active in city councils and local governments and so on. So this is something else that I just like to add, that we believe women, when they achieve those positions, they are going to make a substantial difference to the direction that the human race is going. And if they start at the child age, they are going to teach them the right and wrong in ways that by the time the person is in middle age, will not that easily be able to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bayat. Rosine, did you have your hand raised? Did you want to say something? Okay.
So thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you guys for this wonderful, beautiful program. I'm so happy. And thank you again to Dr. Bayat. And what I would like to add, I think Dr. Bayat also stepped on my tongue, because I was about to say also, as a mother, I understood that to change this world, we have to focus more on the education of our children. When I see the children, how they are with the characters and everything, I am asking myself, what can I do to make them better for the future? Because our hope is our children. And as Baha'i, we have to focus particularly on our basic activities, and particularly children classes. We have to teach virtues to the children, and they can maybe change the world. Thank you.
Absolutely. In one of the writings of Abdul Baha, we read that a mother suffers 9 months of childbearing, and years after that to nourish that child and bring him or her all the way to becoming an adult. That mother would never like that child to fall in the battleground, in the battlefields. And that's why we believe if women reach position of power, a great deal of this militarism, we believe, will go away. Because as I said, it's just an attitude of mind, except that as individuals, we are not involved, and these decisions are made at high levels by the military-industrial complex and members of government that probably directly or indirectly are tied to them. So that being the case, it would never change until mothers come to power. And anytime the subject of a war comes in, they will say, wait a minute, I'm not going to let my child go and fall in that battleground, nor I will be willing to let the children of others fall there. So is there another solution? And that question is the key to change this militarism in the world completely. Thank you.
Wonderful. And we have a last question or comment from Raju. You're still raising your hand? Raju.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy Naw Ruz, everyone from Dubai. Thanks, Firoz, for inviting me. very nice comments from everyone. Dr. Bayat, you spoke about this global peacekeeping and about attitude and about love. I would like to ask this question that, like there is global warming, there is the explosion of human beings, and I'll give you an example. Like in China, they have this one child or two child law now, and even in India today, I heard that they are saying that you have to ask permission to have the third child, something like this. So I'm just thinking, I know that love, can change the world along with attitude. But if suppose we had a peacekeeping force, or which didn't only keep the peace, but also made a lot of strict rules, and everybody had to follow them. Like China had the law for children. This is whether it's for oil companies or for global warming or for the type of food which is produced. If there was not an army, but a force which allowed everybody, which forced everybody to follow certain rules in this world, do you think all these issues which we are having, they could be improved in a faster way, not through love, but through force? I don't know if I'm very popular by saying this, but sometimes, you can get things done in a much faster way through law.
Yes, you are quite right. If you have a dictatorial system, they can pass a law that they say you can have only one child, and that quickly gets rid of too many children. But remember, the unique aspect of a human being is our free will. This free will requires that we are only happy in environments that we make choices. When our free will is not exercised, we are very unhappy people. So yes, you can turn the world to a very big prison that everybody has to follow hundreds of rules. Now, if those rules are just, meaningful, and been reached upon collectively by the collective wisdom of the people, which I said should have love and women should be involved in it heavily, and so on, for the betterment of mankind, people will accept it. You see, the moment that you get into your car in the morning and you go out, as soon as you see a traffic light, you stop. If it is red. If it is not red, you go through. You need to think that that light is for your safety. We have understood that because we know if you don't stop, somebody else is coming from the other side and we will be in deep trouble. The world and mankind needs laws, but needs laws that we can rationalize and understand. If we can rationalize and understand that and know that it is for our well-being, we will follow it. But I was going beyond that. I was going at that what faith does. It would allow us to be sacrificial towards the rest of our fellow human beings. Basically, Baha'u'llah defines a human being as a person who serves everybody else. That's how human being is defined in the Baha'i writing. It has nothing to do with those historical definitions of what makes a man a man. It is a person that wakes up in the morning and would go through the day doing his best to serve his fellow human beings in whatever capacity he has. Okay, now this is what faith does. A mother would look at the children. The moment that the child cries, the moment mom runs, being day or night, shine or whatever, rain, because of that love for that child. Okay, now what faith wants to do is to help us for that element of love first to be generated, accentuated in our being, in our heart, and also extended to the rest of the human beings. This will work far better than strict laws that we may not be able to rationally accept. Okay, so yes, society needs laws. The only environment that doesn't need laws is the jungle. And even in jungle, the law is survival of the fittest. Okay, every animal looks at any other animal, depending on its size relative to itself, as either a food or to escape as a danger. In human society, we should look at each other with love and compassion. So when we see somebody is hungry, we shouldn't say it's his own fault. Hasn't gone to school, hasn't got the right skills, hasn't got the right job, or is lazy and so on. We have to say, what has caused this person to be poor? And then do our best to find ways and means of solving the problem. The Baha'i faith really wants all of us to teach others how to fish, not just to go and offer fish to someone who's hungry. Now, in this way, it's going to go. If you look at most Baha'i activities around the world, concentrate on building schools in villages. You ask yourself why? Because that's where most of the population explosion is taking place. A lady, a girl that is educated will not have too many children because would know she's responsible for their education. She's responsible for their health care even before she becomes pregnant. So even the problem of population explosion will go away when mothers become educated. One of the first things that the Baha'is of Iran did, now we're going back to 1890s, to build schools for girls in Iran. This was at the time that girls had no position in society. Women had no position in society. They created a Baha'i community that all of its women were educated. And as a result, within a span of 20, 30 years, it created a society, Baha'i society, that although they were Persians, but they had hardly anything in common with the rest of the Persian society. Men were educated, women were educated. They were going after the type of lifestyle that was good for themselves and for others. They became great help in building that country. Okay, so yes, love can work. Women can do miracles in that. And with dictatorship, you can achieve some of those, but they are temporary. As soon as that law is removed, everybody would go back to the same thing. Okay, so in the long run, everything has to be voluntary. Yes, the country, our country, United States, can pass a law that the wealth of people should be distributed equally. Okay, suppose it can. Do you think anybody will be happy? That would not be the case. But if they help to raise the consciousness of the very rich ones to use their money for the betterment of life of others and distribute a lot of it, not only they themselves will be happy because they enjoy seeing the fruit of what they do, people will be happy. Right now, there are quite a number of billionaires in the United States that have set aside billions of their wealth in various charity organizations that are creating schools, creating industries, creating jobs, helping with medicine around the world, and so on. So as you see, voluntary is the way it would work, and everybody will be happy. And in fact, it's something that is going to expand, become more and more and more. That's what the Baha'i faith wants, because we are born with a free will. In fact, God created us with a free will. That's the key word we need to watch. You're unhappy if you cannot exercise free will. But if our free will, I go and give all of my wealth to others, at night I'm very happy. I've done it myself. But if it is taken away, probably both sides will be unhappy. Because those who receive that undeservedly, they don't know what to do with it, and they would run into trouble as well. So it has to be in an orderly society. That's what we need. Voluntary work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bayat. We ran over time already. There's lots of questions, a lot of interest generated. So Rita, would you like to say anything?
Certainly, I will keep it short. Yes, I will keep it short because of the time limitations. Dr. Bayat, thank you very much. Your talk has certainly generated a lot of interest and a lot of questions, and we're sorry that we didn't get to everyone. So to conclude, I would just like to thank everyone for joining us today. And we look forward to a good resolution of these COVID restrictions that have been in place for, I guess it's been a year now. And I think things are looking up for us now with plans to reopen soon, and we are looking forward to that. I hope everyone stays safe, and please take good care of yourself. I will conclude with a quote. I know that this is a Baha'i perspective, Naw Ruz, but a lot of the ideas that have been presented are actually universal. And Gandhi, to quote Mohandas Gandhi, he said something, I think he's known to have said, be the change that you want to see happening. So that is something that we can all do what we can. I guess we do what we can, you know, and I agree with you, Dr. Bayat, that free will is of utmost importance. Yeah, I'm definitely not into a lot of involuntary laws. I think even our system as it stands, most laws are, you know, in America anyway, we have a government of the people, for the people, by the people. So our legislators are elected officials for the most part. So there is some, we have something to say. We have a voice. We have a voice. I think that's very important. Okay, well, happy Naw Ruz, everyone. And thank you very, very much for joining us today.
Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful new year. Have a wonderful year ahead.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Nushin, for organizing this program, and Dr. Bayat for your most inspirational talk, and Dr. Dulia Anktor for being Master of Ceremonies. And Firuz, of course, for your technical assistance. I think we have a plan. Hopefully we can share some of this recording with you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you.